was interested in A Boyz II Men, the first one, because I think it showed that Jack Neo has got his finger on the Singapore pulse. He knows what hurts, he knows what pleases, he can play with the Singapore psyche like nobody else, and he's very good at that. So usually when some of my foreign friends come to Singapore or want to find out something, I tend to tell them, watch a Jack Neo movie first. And I don't advise them to see anything else.
Now that, as a side note, now that Raphael, you mentioned it, I actually kind of always wanted to plug, my knowledge of the 1960s film, because I've only seen a few of them, and mostly, P.M. So I've always been very curious, where to actually seek out these films, because I know people like doing their research, like people like you yourself, Ben Slater and others, they actually unearthed so many films in the 60s, but a lot of them are actually lost or something, right? They are not archived. So I really have no idea where to see that, and I think it's a real pity because there's such a huge portion of the local cinema history. So
well, I think for instance, the National Cinematheque now is doing that job. They regularly showcase movies from the old days.
Yeah.
You could find some at the Cathay Archive. They have archived their movies. You can also ask the Shaw Brothers. I mean, they still hold rights and they have the copies of the P.M. movies. But commercially speaking, yes, I agree, it's difficult and it's a pity. And I like to point to the fact that in the early 2000s there was this DVD publisher called Comstar that started publishing movies from the 50s, 60s. Stopped and disappeared, but it was extremely important because it made available movies which had never been seen for the last 2 or 3 decades. And you cannot go on without having your memory of who you are. I think that's one of the main issues about Singapore identity in general and about the identity of Singapore cinema in particular, is the question of memory. You never start totally from scratch. That's not true.
I absolutely agree with you.
So you need to know where you're from, and where you're from is the movies that were made in those days. They can tell you partly where you're from.
Interestingly, I read a portion of your book that said that if you take a snapshot of the films in the 1960s and a snapshot of films now, it's like 2 different countries. I mean, in the 1960s, it's Malay characters in the Malay language, and right now it's predominantly in Chinese, and nobody seems. In other countries, people make tributes to films of the past, or they make references, but it hasn't so far been seen in Singapore.
It's more complex than that. Actually, it's on the surface, it looks like it's not the same country, but the fact that it's the same country makes you think about the country is today. You know what I mean? So there are different layers. The layer of the past is just right there below. It's almost archaeology. You just need to dig. And archaeology teaches you a lot of things about who you are.
I agree. I have to say, it's not that... I have actually seen some short films made by independent filmmakers about P. Ramlee. A lot of people are still paying tribute to him. Maybe we just haven't found someone to finance a film of a big enough scale to tell a full-on story.
There's someone who did something interesting. I don't know if he's not very active anymore. It's Jin Onglei Jin, whatever you want to call him. He's got different identities. The fact that he dealt with the Pontianak story in his own manner, showed that somehow he related to the past of Singapore cinema. That's interesting, and very few people have done it since. I don't understand why. There's a treasure. You've got lots of very good stories that could be told again in a modern way.
But I don't know, sadly I find something happening in Singapore that's also happening in a lot of Asia is people like to, a lot of the younger generation don't like to draw inspiration from what's within the country. They look to other countries, they look to...
Ask Raymond.
I think this is a very loaded question. We should
talk about this another time. Okay. And bringing us back to Anthony Chen's Win, we read an article on the Straits Times written by John Louis, who mentioned that even though Ilo Ilo has been a success, a cultural success in a cultural way, in an artistic way, but he has doubts over the commercial success of Ilo Ilo in Singapore. I mean, obviously, his article has generated a lot of pretty strong reactions, both from readers, from writers, and even within our team itself. And Raymond, I mean, I know you feel very strongly. You have some strong feelings about what's been written in the article. What's your take on it?
I know that the piece it looks and seems very innocuous, or at least it reads as a very harmless piece, and that's why there are a lot of very polarizing reactions. I reacted very strongly against, and some people actually said that he makes very valid points, and even within our team ourselves. And my point is that my whole piece which I did with Colin, my whole conversation piece which I did with Colin, another SINdie writer, it's not so much about attacking the points itself, because he has valid points in his article, but it's just that I feel they are not used to argue the points that he mentioned about film festival juries gravitating towards certain topics, or like grimmer themes and grimmer topics, and movie going public what they like, the kind of movies that they like, which is generally like action, blockbusters, or comedies, things like that. These are some very obvious points to me, and I felt like even though he started off his article by saying that he's happy for Anthony Chen, he feels that this is a historic moment for local cinema, I felt like those points or those things that he mentioned at the beginning, it's more of an excuse for him to go off on his own tangent and rant about about how film festival juries and movie going public have different tastes. And I feel like the whole piece was very ill-conceived, very wrong-headed, because it just perpetuates the divide between the art house and the commercial and the cineplex, which is, I feel, very silly.
Okay, my personal take about the piece is, I think what he said has some truth in it. Yeah. Maybe it's just out at the wrong timing.
Yeah.
With Anthony Chen's win, Ilo has been hailed as some kind of a it has some kind of a national heroic status, which has become a talking point. I guess that's why maybe John Lee has a reason to make a say at this point of time, to share with maybe his readers what he feels is an intelligent observation. But what do you think about what's been written?
I think it's a very interesting debate, eventually controversy, if you want to call it like that. It's good. Debate is always good, and I think that shows that the critical space maybe in Singapore is ready for such discussion. And as I always say, you need that critical space. You need to engage with the film, to engage with the audience, to engage with the filmmakers. And any form of debate is welcome, to each his opinion after that. Of course, I think we should also give credit to Anthony Chen and wait for his film to be released and see if he really does that bad or not. I think he might not do so bad, because from what I've seen before from his previous work, yes, I agree with Raymond. It's quite accessible. It's auteur, it's artistic, but it's accessible nonetheless. And that's very important. And that might be the special strength of someone like Anthony, and I wish him to carry on with that, because that means he can go very far, both with the international circuit and with his local audience. And we can only wish him good when it comes to that. After that, when it comes to encouraging the audience to broaden its perspective, to not reinforce the audience prejudice, I tend also to agree with Raymond. I think it's good when you write something about film or book, literature, whatever, if you're able to draw more people to it. Because usually when you write about literature or you write about film, it's because you like it, it's because you love it, and you want more people to love it. So I think let's be fair, let's be let's be magnanimous in a way. You need to be magnanimous when it comes to that. And the last thing I'd like to say is that I think it points to also something special about Singapore because of the small size of the film industry today. Despite everything we say, there are good developments and everything, but it is still a rather small film industry, which means there is no critical mass in terms of film output. You don't have that many films every year. And when you have a good movie, sometimes you expect too much of that movie. It cannot cover the whole spectrum. It cannot be always like the movie that wins accolades, awards everywhere, and is commercially successful. That's very rare. So is it fair to expect this from Anthony Chen's movie? I don't know. It's a little bit like saying, sure, A Boyz II Men is a commercial success, but let me tell you, it's not going to get any award. Yeah, well, yeah, of course.
I mean, that's my point.
Of
I
course,
just feel
but
everybody knows that, so there's no point in
everybody knows
writing
that.
an article.
And I think actually it's okay. You should have movies like Anthony's movies, and you should have movies like Jack's movies.
Yeah.
And both of them are part of the same ecosystem, and they contribute differently to that ecosystem, and that's what you want.
I personally have a theory about this, and it's related to what you said about having that one movie to celebrate about. I mean, we're a small country, you know. We've only started our movie industry, so we're constantly looking for things to celebrate, you know, things to hold on to. And so it really doesn't matter whether it's a huge box office success, or an award winner. As long as it's something to be proud of, it becomes headline news. It becomes something that we want to trumpet about. And I think my theory is that it's very hard to run away from it because our market is so small. But I only hope that as time goes by, whoever we trumpet as the national hero, people will be discerning enough to read in between the lines to know how to put it in the right category, to put that film in the right category.
If I may add something, I think with A Boyz II Men 1 and 2, you have some kind of amazing commercial success. You have achieved something which had not really been achieved that far before in Singapore. And with the recognition given in festivals to Anthony Chen's movie, you also have something which had not been achieved like that before. So actually it's a very good year. Let's rejoice. As I said at the beginning, rejoice, start chanting and everything if you want to. But it's true. That's what you need. They both bring good things to the local film industry. And many film industries would be looking for this kind of thing, a commercial success and at the same time an international success in the festival circuits. You have both. What more do you want?
Oh, Singaporeans want a lot. I think you can attest to that, Raymond. Well, anyway, we've come to the end of our podcast. I'm very happy we've had such a great discussion with Raphael and Raymond. Thank you for spending time here.
Thank you.
And just to let you know, SINdie will be launching as an island-wide, we hope island-wide survey on what's the Singaporean film most people are proud of. As I mentioned, we did a bit of research and we found about over 150 films over the last 8 years, and we're going to find out in probably a few months' time what's on the top 10 rankings. So stay tuned to our website, www.sindie.sg. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.